guys, Courtney from CD Exotics here. Welcome back to my channel. If you are new here, make sure you go down below, hit that subscribe button. Also, if you could hit that like button, leave me a comment, let me know how you like this video and any videos that you guys want to see in the future. Today we're going to be doing a do-it-yourself FB40 tub PVC rack. Alright, so I am building a PVC rack. It's going to be a 5-level rack out of 1/2-inch PVC. You can also build this out of the 3/4-inch melamine. You just need to adjust your measurements a little bit. And obviously it's going to be quite a bit heavier. I do really like the PVC. I get it from Home Depot. It's about $78 a sheet, which is not... I mean, it's expensive, but I really like the racks. The racks do really well, and I should be able to resell them for a pretty decent amount of money, because at some point I am planning on replacing my PVC racks with ARS or possibly Freedom Breeder, but I'm leaning towards ARS. But that's a ways down the road. So right now I'm just going with the PVC. These are ones I purchased behind me, but all of the white racks are ones that I have built, and those are ones I'm going to be continuing to build. I can't get black PVC. I can only get the white from Home Depot, so out of luck there. You can order black online, but you gotta buy it in bulk. You spend a lot more money. Like, it's just not worth it. So what you need for this build is the 1/2-inch PVC sheets. You're going to need one 4x8 sheet for each 5-level rack that you build. And you're going to need some screws. I use these drywall screws. They are number 6 by 1.25 inches. I really like these. You don't need to pre-drill. They go in really nice. Like these a lot. I get them from Ace, but I'm sure you can get them from Lowe's too. But they work really nicely. So I get those, and you just need a drill. If you get lucky, some Home Depots will cut your sheet for you. I got lucky one time. I got an older gentleman that he didn't know that they're not supposed to cut PVC with a saw there, so he did cut it for me. But other than that, you can do everything with a circular saw. I did not show in this video how I cut everything, but if you wait till the end, I will link the video for my hatchling build, and in that one I did show how I set up kind of a do-it-yourself track saw, because I didn't want to spend the money on a track saw, and you definitely don't need to. They're amazing tools. I would love to have one, but you can totally do it with a straight board and a circular saw. You don't have to have a router. I will say you don't have to have a router. I did build 2 of my racks without a router, but I prefer the router because you can feel the tubs kind of catching on the heat tape a little bit, and I've had to tape them down multiple times, and I don't like that. I would rather spend the money on a router. You can go get a cheap one from Harbor Freight or somewhere, $50. Get you a router. It's worth it. So, enough talking, and let's get started with this build. Alright, so here's just a little clip of routing. So here you can see I have the shelf clamped to this table. I know the lighting's pretty crazy out here. But what I do is I mark out my space where my heat tape's going to go, and I just route in between those 2 lines. But as you can see, it's a little bit messy. Looks like it snowed in July, but here's my router. Use a straight edge to do that. I am covered in PVC dust.
And it's about 90 today, so this is not too pleasant.
So here are the supplies. See, I have shelves here. There are all the shelves, and then there's a top right there. And you can see I've already routed them. I know the line is a little crooked, but it'll work. Over here, we have 2 bigger legs in the back and 4 smaller legs. And then over here, we have a back. And this one here is one I just finished up. So we're going to be building the same exact thing. And you can see it is going to be 5 levels high. And it's going to have a front leg, a middle leg, back leg, and then it's going to have a back piece on it once I put the heat tape in. But the heat tape hasn't come yet. Let's go ahead and get started. So here I am getting ready to cut the edges out for my heat tape. And I'm just going to score the edges here. It makes it a little bit easier when you're trying to trim across there. And I'm just trimming out a little bit. It only needs to be thick enough that you can get your heat tape through. And you want to do alternating sides on every shelf. You don't need to do both sides of the shelves because your heat tape is only going to snake through one side. You just need to make sure that as you're building the rack and as you're cutting these out, that you are alternating. And I'm just trimming this out. It's pretty easy to do. This knife is definitely not very sharp, so it's definitely not difficult. You kind of get in a groove with it, and it doesn't really take too long. You can see I'm wearing my camo constrictors shirt. I got that from them. Just give them a little shout out. They've had some really nice egg cuttings lately. Make sure you go check them out. And I'm just trimming up the last little bits here. See, I'm just I keep adjusting to try and keep it in frame. And now I'm going to move on to the next shelf. We're going to go a little quicker now. That last bit was a bit slow, but I wanted to make sure you guys kind of saw what I was doing. And so just trimming. I probably go down maybe, I don't know, maybe 1/8 of an inch. You don't need to go down very much, but I want to make sure that I go far enough, because on the first rack that I did, I didn't really, I had some issues. There was a couple spots I didn't go far enough down. So it's always better to go too far than not enough. Like I said, all you're doing is trimming with a knife, so you don't have to worry about trimming it too much. It does create a bit of shavings on the floor. You can kind of see that. So definitely do it somewhere where you don't mind having a mess. Don't do it inside on your carpet or something, because you will have a mess. Alright, so now I'm going to get started on the build. And I'm just going to use my right angle clamps to put the legs on. And I'm going to square it up with the front. And I am putting it so that the top piece is on the bottom. Like I'm sitting the leg down on top of it. And you can see that's why I'm screwing from the bottom, because I think it gives it more support when you do it that way, especially when you're stacking these. And that's why your top shelf is 1 inch wider than all of your other shelves, because you need to have room for the legs. And then your shelves will fit inside nicely. I did end up getting a second right angle clamp because those things are just amazing. And of course I'm out of frame here because that's how I roll. Hopefully I notice. There we go. Looks like I realized I was out of frame. So the back leg is a little bit harder because you can't use the right angle clamp. There you can see what I'm doing. I just kind of lined it up with how it's being routed. And I use that square to make sure that everything is staying at a right angle, since I can't use the clamp. And I'm going to do the same thing with that middle leg too. I just kind of measure to see, that way I knew how far it was on the other side as well. You really don't have to measure there. There's nothing specific. other than you just want to make sure your legs are going to be the same, especially when you're stacking. You kind of want to make sure everything is even and the same. So just doing the same thing on this side, making sure everything lines up. I get my screws started on the bottom before I put the leg in, because otherwise if you're trying to start a screw and hold the leg and make sure everything is, 90 degrees, and it's just too difficult. So, last leg here. So I'll line everything up, get the screws in. There we go. Alright, so there's the FB40 tubs. And I'm going to do the same thing I did in the hatchling build. I'm just going to use those CDs as spacers. And make sure you put your shelf in right. I put it in wrong and had to flip it around. You also want to make sure, you want to remember that you are building this upside down. So make sure that the piece that you routed out is upside down, and, that your tubs and everything are upside down. That way your spacing is correct. Of course, you can't see anything what I'm doing on the back side. But I do this front leg that I'm near right now. I do that one first, and I make sure that it's flush in the front. I go around the other side, and I do the other front leg because I want to make sure that everything is flush. And then I go around and do the back legs. You also want to make sure that when you're screwing the shelf down and you're kind of holding everything, that you're not putting pressure down on the shelf, because then your tubs aren't going to slide really well. Even though you have those spacers, like it'll still be too tight. So I know it's kind of boring with me on the backside. You really can't see much of anything. But this is the same process I use for my hatchling rack. It's just different dimensions with a bigger tub. That's all. And you can see on that first shelf there that I did 3 screws there. And then you can see on this shelf that I'm only going to do 2. And that's because this side is where the heat tape goes. So you can't screw in the middle there where your heat tape goes, because otherwise you can't snake your heat tape through the gap that you cut out. But because those back legs were so big, I did want to do a 3rd screw on the shelves where it was possible. This is a pretty big tub, so I do want to make sure that my legs are pretty big. You could do an enclosed rack. I choose not to because I heat my room. My room's about 82 all the time. So I really don't need to do enclosed racks, and this saves me quite a bit of money on material. And it also saves some weight too as well. So just moving on up. Just move my spacers up. I've got the 2 spacers in the front, 2 spacers in the back, and then in the middle I have a spacer. I kind of alternate where I put the spacer, like on that middle board. I know it's kind of hard to see. Hopefully at some point here I'll move the camera up. Got my JKR shirt I'm rocking there today. He's finally started putting out some videos again. He had a real nice special clown video today. Those things are pretty sweet. I've been wanting some special in my collection here for a little while, and I definitely need to get some. Looks like I finally figured out that I need to move the camera up. And this is it. So now I'm going to cut off the excess on the legs. And I'm just using my square to kind of mark a line. And I'm going to use the saw and cut that off. I am stepping on one of the legs. You definitely want to make sure you're holding it down, because otherwise, as you're using the saw, you'll be kind of chasing the rack around because it will move. And then you'll get a really terrible cut. And I'm just going to do the same thing on this side. So you just want to draw your line to make sure you're getting as close to the bottom as possible without cutting into that shelf.
You could do this with a circular saw, but I have this saw and it works better, so I use this one.
So that was the rack build. I did build 2 of them, and I stacked them on top of each other. If you're on my Instagram, you probably have already seen a picture of them. I did just get the heat tape in yesterday, and I got the heat tape installed, and I put a couple of my females in the rack already. So we're going to see how they do. I had one that she's like 1,300 grams, I think, and she has not been eating lately. And I've had her she was in this tub here, and it's a really clear tub. She used to eat amazing in the semi-clear, and then once I bumped her up to this, she's been very hit or miss eating. So I'm curious to see if going into the gray freedom breeder tub, if she starts eating again, because I was really hoping to breed her this fall, and I would really like her to get a little bit more size. So that'll be interesting. I am planning on doing a video really soon on how to run the heat tape, because neither of my videos show running heat tape, and I know I've had a couple people ask how I run my heat tape. So I did do a little video on that. It should be a pretty quick video. It's fairly self-explanatory, which is why I didn't put it in the hatchling build video, but I have had some people ask how to do it, so I wanted to make sure that I did a video for you guys so you could see how exactly I do it and what materials you need for that. I hope you liked this video. So I'm going to go ahead and link the video to the hatchling build right here. Check that out, and it'll show you how I cut everything. Make sure you get really straight lines, because that's important. So check that out, and make sure you hit that subscribe button.